Fabrication, one of the things that we're doing is we're adding a bunch of enhancements from our friends over at Evo Spec Performance. You heard me talk a little bit about their reverse cam sensor housing, which flips the cam sensor reference 180 degrees, keeps the sensor itself away from the heat, and also looks nice. We're going to also be installing an Evo Spec belt tensioner setup, which is very simple, as you can see. It includes just a couple of clevis ends, with one end being reverse threaded, a female connector in the middle that has flat ends on it so that you can get a wrench around it, and then accordingly the necessary hardware to go with it, and of course a fresh belt. And the reason that we use these, and the reason to do this really, is it simplifies the whole tensioner system on the Evo's accessory belt. It also drops a tremendous amount of weight by getting rid of some of these heavier brackets that are on here. So I'm just about to go ahead and install this on the vehicle as well. But in addition to this, we are also going to be installing a whole new fuel system from our friends over at Evo Spec. And this happens to be the exact same fuel system that I'm running in my Black Senate Evo. It comes complete with all the lines, the AM fittings that go from the rear of the vehicle on the top of the hanger to the pumps, all the way to the fuel rail. So we've got our lines, both return and feed. And what we went with here, it looks like, is we went with a -10 feed and then a -8 return. So we've got our according fittings here, along with the plug and play harness. Daniel, the owner over at Evo Spec, does a nice job of identifying what exactly the engine management system is that you're going to be running in your vehicle, and he pre-designs and pre-does all the wiring with their own relays, so it's literally plug and play. This particular unit is going to be using a boost reference, whereas if it has the first pump running and doing all the normal operations, this will kick the second pump on at whatever the specified boost level is that we put it at. So for instance, if we want it to kick on at 7 pounds, there's a little Allen key inside the top of this, and we can adjust that so that whatever that point is will either go up or down based on what we want to do. Typically you want it to kick in a little bit higher than, 5 or 7, because you don't want light throttle operations to be flickering on and off the second pump. You usually want to have it kick on just below wastegate boost, like 10 or 11 pounds, and then you've got plenty of fuel pressure throughout the RPM. So this is a great unit, and we selected the dual 525 pumps, which, as you can tell, has plenty of power support given the fact that we're running it on our car. And he's nice enough to do everything such as drill out and siphon, drill out the venturi there on the return so that it can take on the excess flow that it's going to be seeing. So we'll go ahead and get ourselves started with installing this belt tensioner system, and then move on to the fuel pump setup. Fuel system. We're going to demonstrate exactly what the benefits of the Evo Spec belt tensioner kit is. Well, it's as simple as this. Here's the hardware that comes with it. Take a look. That's 5 ounces. 4.5. 5-ish. We'll call it 5. Okay. Now let's take all this stuff that we're taking off. Alright, we'll tear it here. Tear. It's 3 pounds and 13 ounces. So you do the math. Obviously we're losing quite a nice little bit of weight there. And also opening up quite a bit of space. So we've got this ability to bolt on here, it really is tight up in here. So by putting on this tensioner, it'll open up a lot of space back there and make it a lot easier for us to work. Anyway, that's what that's all about. If you want one of these kits, just Google Evo Spec Performance and you should be able to pull up their website right away. All right, so we've got the tensioner itself in place. If you want to take a look in there, you can see how it looks and how it's positioned. It just basically bolts to the alternator as shown, and if you spin this rod one way, it'll tighten. If you spin it the other way, it'll loosen the tension on the belt, and it's as simple as that. Very simple. It opens up a lot of space and also eliminates a lot of weight. The reason I don't have the belt on is because I've got some other parts that we may potentially install, but I'm waiting to talk to Stavros before we make that decision. And in the meantime, it makes sense to just leave off the belt, because if we do make those changes, then I'm gonna have to pull the belt back off anyway. So that's why the belt's not on there. Additionally, he originally had a titanium intake on the car. Let me grab that real quick. And as you can tell, we've been building everything on this car to look clean and polished. So with intercooler piping all being polished and the manifold being a polished look, this would sort of be a sore sight in the mix of it all. So we've decided to go ahead and make a custom aluminum, dropping everything, custom aluminum intake to match everything else that we're going to be doing. So we'll go ahead and just make that up right now. As you can see, we're making a list here because we're getting close to finishing up this car. And what I'm going to do next is build an accessory item that goes as an optional add-on for those of you that are running an OEM coolant overflow tank, which I am on my own vehicle. And Stavros appears to be following my advice and doing the same because it's lightweight, it's simple, and it's effective. So this normally has a bracket that it's supported by throttle cable, which I still need to hook up, but normally it's got a bracket which has now been deleted because of the tubular front end, and it needs to be supported so that if it does have fluid in it, it won't tip down that way. So what I do is I build a little supporting bracket that's kind of hidden off of the chassis here, and it's quick and simple, I should say. So we'll whip one up real quick. all we're doing is we're gonna bend this thing so that it goes from this little piece right here and then curves around and connects to this point right here on this bolt hole, which is just hiding behind the fender. So it'll be like a hidden floating bracket that'll keep it supported in order to make sure that it doesn't fall when it's got fluid. So we are moving on to fuel system finally. We just knocked out some other items on our list as you saw, and now I am ripping a glove. Yay! No, I'm not. One of the last remaining large upgrades aside from the transmission that we need to do is upgrade the fuel system. And as I introduced earlier on in the episode, we're going to be stepping up to a plug-and-play Evo Spec Performance bolt-in kit, which is featuring billet inlet and outlet, or inlet and return housing, as well as pre-length as well as pre-length hoses and a plug-and-play harness. So, even includes a fresh gasket. So let's move on to getting the old system apart and installing this one. My floor so clean? Ashy. No, it's a spinning coolant handle. Oh. So, we are finished up with pretty much the fuel system like you saw before, and now we've got most of the drivetrain apart. We are waiting on the transmission before we can actually get everything put together. But in the meantime, that's pretty much it for this episode. Just make sure you guys remember to subscribe and hit notifications. And for those of you that have watched this video all the way through, thank you for doing that. And just a reminder though, that in the future, I'm going to be giving away coupon codes for discounts either on product or on merchandise. So you better watch all the way through. Okay, till next time.